My God, this chapter was crazy, wasn't it? And for that Garp feat to happen, man, Marineford has such a different feel to it. But we'll talk about Marineford later on. I want to talk about something very particular in the chapter that I love. And, I've been preaching about this a little bit over the past few weeks. I've been talking about the Blackbeard kills Emu theory. I've been on about this for God knows how long now. I think I made a video about it for a while. But I've kind of changed my opinion a little bit as time went on. But I am more certain in this idea than ever before. Because if we see in this chapter, right, we see a moment where Blackbeard's talking about how I want to create a pirate kingdom ruled by me, King Blackbeard. Why did I go war? Why did I go for a kind of laugh? Zay ha ha, zay ha ha, right? He wants to build a whole pirate kingdom, right? He's like, zay ha ha ha. King Blackbeard, I like the sound of that. You know what I mean? That sort of stuff, right? He's all about that. He's like officially recognized by the government. And I think he will achieve that. And there's one particular reason why. Because in Jaya, he was the man to give that dream speech, that dreams will never die. And he even says to Kobe in this chapter, you should not downplay my dreams. Right? And that's a key thing about One Piece. And as, in my opinion now, the final antagonist of One Piece, he has to achieve this dream. And what way can he do it? Well, when he kills Emu, he de facto becomes the government, in which case then he can approve that. And in the eyes of him and everyone else, then it's a government-approved pirate island. Apologies for the cut. Someone just came in halfway through the sentence, so I had to restart it. But that's the whole point, right? I think that is going to happen now, and to me, it brings up more of my theory about him killing Emu and how that would be much more impactful on the world, and his whole speech in Marineford about bringing chaos to the world and the embody, technically being the king of the world and carrying on Zebek's will. It covers 3 areas of Blackbeard's entire story, right? And I think that works so well for him to achieve that dream that way. And I'm really attached to this idea now. Obviously, there's a lot more to it, and I might make a scripted video on it at some point. And after I've done a complete rewatch of the entire series or reread, and just to sit down and think about it, I might try and do that before the end of the year because I doubt it will happen before the end of the year. So if I try and get that video out before the end of the year, we could see some really, hopefully, but maybe not. Maybe I'll just continue to talk with them in this. But then that aside, right? Obviously, I love that idea of Blackbeard. We got to see more of his crew and their devil fruits. We got to see Vasco Shaw has the booze fruit, which that's a cool fruit. Makes him Zoro's next opponent, probably. I wonder who he will fight, though, in the Straw Hats. He'll probably fight some sort of Frankie. I think he might be Frankie's opponent now. The reason I say that is because, alright, cola is a carbonated drink, right? And booze can be carbonated. Well, beer in particular. I don't know if this is like a sake or rum in particular, because it is a Japanese story. So it could be like something different. And I'm not completely super knowledgeable about beer. I'm only recently able to drink it legally. So I don't necessarily know what drinks are carbonated and what's not. I just know beer's carbonated, so I don't know if sake is carbonated or whatever is a standard drink there. So it could be a case where it's like, well, that makes sense because he's basically fighting what powers him, right? A carbonated drink. Because science is all about finding substitutes to be able to do the same thing, right? And what can do the same thing? Power them with booze. Imagine if at some point Frankie runs out of cola during his fight with Vasco Shaw, and he uses Vasco Shaw to power his weapons. That would be so good. I think it'd be a funny gag, and it'd be a great way to have a bit of humor in this really dark moment. I think in this fight, and then what's the guy's name? The king guy, the corrupt king fella, has the island fruit, which I really like as well, because to me, I was like, if you combine that with Sanwan Wolf's fruit, man, you could get some Zunisha style stuff where he gigantifies the island to the point, or he gigantifies him to the point where he can walk around in the sea because he's so big that it doesn't affect him as much. And then you'll have a case where Blackbeard has a portable island like so, and I think that'd be great. And you could also have it so we know there's a ship coming to Egghead at the minute. which seems like it's and Luffy and the sniper. God, I can't remember any of their names. I feel terrible, but the sniper guy who can teleport, right? Luffy and him probably. They're probably the two coming because we see the rest of them are on the Blackbeard Island, and if the mobile island thing is confirmed, we could definitely see that. Also, the fact we know Mori is alive is very interesting because Perona comes here and she helps Kobe escape, but she says, "Free Moria, please. He's at the deepest level of the prison." So we're obviously going to see that, and that's how we're going to be introduced to Law again because Law is not dead. He was off screen, and I don't think a major character like Law would die off screen personally, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong, right? There's a full possibility that Law is off screen. And dies, but I think because of the importance he's had in the story, and you know what happened to Kid, even Kid got what we're going to consider a death on screen, right? So Law would have to have the same treatment, if not a better treatment, because at the end of the day, he is essentially a Straw Hat. He is like the New World's Vivi, right? He traveled with them for multiple arcs and then had his big arc. And then even traveled with them after the big arc. He came back. Vivi didn't come back. He's only coming back now. Law came back after Dressrosa. He went to Zoe with them. Then he went to Wano. And I know the whole thing was he was going to fight Kaido. But let's be perfectly honest with ourselves here. With Law, his plotline kind of not ended with Dressrosa, but his involvement in the plot kind of diminished after Dressrosa. I mean, we see now in the anime, the Big Mom Kid and Law fight is happening. And Law is showing it work, man. The anime makes Kid look worse than he did in the manga. This is like, and he looks good, but my god, he makes him look terrible. Like the migraines and stuff. Law did the most damage. Law, the way they make Law's attack, man, it's so clean. Cruel, bro. What a cool ability, man. Law is just the rule of cool done absolutely brilliantly, and he has a great character arc. He has a great backstory. He's just fantastic, and Kid is just man. I tried to defend Kid for a while. I was like, he's gonna be the villain of Elbath, all this stuff. He might still be if he comes back, but I doubt it. I think it's done. I think he's Oda's thinning out the roster of worst generation members, which makes me really confused why he didn't kill Apu and Wano, but I'm not going to go there right now. But my main point here is that we could have Blackbeard be mobile and stuff like that, yeah? But if Mori is still alive, that leaves Law definitely being still alive. And we see Sword mentioned in this chapter, which is interesting. I'll get back to that in a minute. But Moria being alive, I love, because I could see them escaping and Perona going to Mihawk, because honestly at this point I think she knows they need protection, and she feels like Mihawk cares for her because he, in a sense, right, because they lived together for 2 years, maybe even a bit more. She lived in him for a couple months afterwards, right, whereas Zoro left immediately in 2 years, so it could be like a year and a half, 2.5 years, right? So they might go to Cross Guild, and I'd say Cross Guild will take any pirates who are willing to work for them, and obviously Mihawk might be like, yeah, sure, she cooks well, she can do it, you know? Because, like, he's gonna make it seem like he doesn't care. He's gonna be like, oh, well, she can cook, so yeah. But, like, obviously he actually does care for her, so he's gonna be a bit more lenient. He might scare the hell out of Mori and make sure he stays in line, you know? Like, that might be his first display of conquerors, right? Like, yeah, they come in trying to join Cross Guild. Moria shows a bit of, like, gumption, and then Mihawk is just like, and the hockey is exuding off him. Maybe he even does that thing, you know, where he just slightly lifts Yoru out of it, or slightly lifts Yoru up, and the Conqueror's hockey emitting from it just like puts Mori in line immediately. You know what I mean? And he's a warlord, so that's a big feat, right? And I think that'd be a great scene. Or even if it's Crocodile. Imagine if it's Crocodile and that's who we see Crocodile as conquerors. That'd be insane. Although I don't think Crocodile will have conquerors. It would be really cool, and I'd enjoy seeing Crocodile do something like that, and it'd be a really enjoyable thing to see happen. Because Crocodile has been getting a lot of love since Marineford. You know what I mean? Once he was released, I mean, the drip for one is fantastic. He's funded the entire Cross Guild operation. We actually got to see Kobe's wanted poster in this chapter, which brings up a very interesting point, right? 5 stars is about 500 million berries, right? So it's about 1 star equals 100 mil, right? So what is the ratings for the admirals, right? Because they'd at least have to be 10-star bare minimum, if not 20. Like if not 20 plus stars, but you're not gonna write that on a page. So is there other shows, like is there different color stars? Like, oh, you've got the regular colored stars which are all 100 mil, but like the silver ones, they're all like a billion a pop, right? So like you'll have the 3 admirals be like 3 silver stars, and you'll have the fleet admiral be 5 silver stars. Something like that. Because we gotta take into account this SBS, right? Where Oda said that Akainu would find the One Piece in a year. Akainu would be a 5 billion berry man. I don't care what anyone says. He would be a 5 billion berry man. If he's gonna find the One Piece in a year, he's definitely a 5 billion berry man. But this brings up a good point, right? Now we know that Sword isn't necessarily fighting against the world government of the Marines. It's just a version of the Marines that doesn't have to answer to the Gorosei. They're technically off the books, so they can attack the Yonko. So it's like, essentially they still work for the Marines, but they're working under Akainu. And the Gorosei don't know about it. So it basically means either Garp or Akainu are running the gaff. I could even see it being a thing where like Garp had the idea, but he was like, I don't want to be watched anymore. So you know what you should do with Sengoku. So even Sengoku might be running it. He might feel bad about what happened at Marineford. He didn't do a proper job, and he let a pirate take control of Marineford. And he's like, I gotta sort this out. So he was like, no, when I retire, I'm gonna focus entirely on Sword. Maybe he's the leader of Sword. And again, there's also options where you could say Akainu. And I think we do have to look at the possibility of it being Akainu, because we think he's a big bad guy. He wouldn't do any of this. But at the end of the day, right, as long as he's attacking pirates, he's all about attacking pirates and people who sympathize with pirates. Yeah, he goes a bit far with it, of course, but he still has those beliefs, right? So he's going, and he thinks the Gorosei are getting in the way of that. So anyone, including the Gorosei, who gets in the way with his goal of just eradicating all pirates, he's going to get rid of you, right? So his way of doing that is setting up the Sword Organization, right? I wanted it to be Garp. I always wanted it to be Garp who set it up, but I'm leaning towards Akainu a little more. I'm going on the Garp train for a while, because even the fact he's here, man, come on. That's another thing about this chapter, though. I think it gives Kobe a bit extra character. Obviously, we know he wanted to be a Marine, but we see him in action. We got to see him in action a little bit in the Boa chapter, but not too much. Here we get to see his actual kind heart be shown outside of when the pre-time skip, right? And we get to see him doing stuff, and his competence and how his will to protect people is super strong. And I think that's something really interesting. He's like, and I'd love to see where this takes him. You know what I mean? I'd love to see where he goes. I'm excited. I want to see Kobe play a bigger role, because that's the thing, right? Same with Smoker, right? Tashigi shows up in this chapter, right? With a bunch of the Sword members, which basically means Smoker's probably a part of Sword now, which I am very happy with. But what I wanted to say, Smoker did nothing post-time skip. He really hasn't done anything. And it's infuriating to see, right? I want the Marines to do more stuff. We see here, Garp, I might as well address it now. I've been talking down and just talking about other stuff. But Garp's Galaxy Punch, that blows the scaling out of the water. Okay? Now, here's the problem with Garp's scaling. And now we're going to get into Marineford now. We'll go back to Smoker in a little bit. But Marineford's so weird now. Because now because we thought his sickness didn't really affect Whitebeard until after he gets actually sick. But we see the full effect of Whitebeard's sickness in this chapter, because we see what Garp can do. This is what an old, non-sick Whitebeard could have done. Sorry, that's my alarm. But an old, non-sick Whitebeard could have destroyed Marineford, man. There wouldn't have been an Admiral alive who could have done that besides Garp. And Garp, no matter how strong you think Garp is, if they had the full force of the Whitebeard pirates on Garp and Sengoku alone and the admirals, Whitebeard could have done everything else on his own and wiped out every other fleet from the vice admirals down in like a few shots, and then the rest of the Whitebeard pirates stall Sengoku and Garp long enough for him to rescue Ace. That could have totally worked if Whitebeard wasn't sick. His sickness played such a big role, and maybe not even that. Maybe it was, one of his own kids stabbing him. Like, that could have done a lot more damage to sick Whitebeard than we actually thought, because sick Roger still had a hell of a lot of strength in him. So it could have been mainly that. So I'm excited to see, right? Obviously, we know Akainu would have got demolished. Like, that punch is crazy. I'm also inclined to believe, makes me think Luffy is stronger than we think. Because we've seen Garp's abilities now, and he's essentially that kind of father figure. When you don't see how strong he is yet, the kid can't be stronger now. But we've seen how strong Garp is. So I feel like now we can argue. I'm going to say it now, right? I think Luffy... Kaido and Big Mom are going down in my estimations every chapter, alright? Because these feats from Shanks, Garp, and now Akainu and Aokiji are probably going to be up there because we haven't fought them yet. Everyone we're about to fight now has to be stronger, has to hit that threshold. You know what I mean? And that's the problem. Because Kaido, yeah, he fought against Gear 5 Luffy, and if Gear 5 Luffy is on that level, then you can say Kaido is still on that level. But unless Big Mom comes back, yeah, she was only on a ring out, but her performance wasn't that great. Now, I will say, I'm rewatching Whole Cake Island at the minute, and she, in that arc, she does give off the terror that Big Mom should give off, but also plays that childish thing, I think, went a bit too badly in Wano, to a great degree, because her being childish and out of control actually makes her stronger, because no one can communicate with her. She's not coherent. She's just a raging monster. And that's what they should have done in Wano, but they never did. They had her have this amnesia crap. And I think the anime might help that, because even with the fight against Law and Kid right now, you can see her domination, right? You can see how strong she is. But I just feel like sometimes she comes across as super strong, other times she doesn't. And Shanks and Garp's betrayals here are so far above the other two. Kaido, you can kind of make it out to be sort of weird. Kaido is sort of weird in that regard, because he's the strongest creature. We know at bare minimum he has to be top 5 out of the current ones we know. Now that could go down. Dragon could be really busted. Akainu could be really busted. These are characters that wouldn't necessarily have the title strongest creature because they're very isolated. We don't have to know their abilities. The only one that doesn't make sense is Shanks, because Shanks would have displayed his abilities fairly openly at certain points, so he should have gotten that moniker if he was. But I honestly, at this point, I'm kind of thinking it's probably going to end up, the top 5 is probably going to be ending up looking like this, if we're excluding Luffy, because obviously he's going to be top 1. So before that happens, it's probably going to end up looking like Dragon... No, Blackbeard definitely. So Blackbeard, Shanks, and Emu, right? Dragon, Akainu, possibly Aokiji, and then Kaido. I think Kaido still has to be in the top 5, because otherwise that diminishes everything Luffy worked towards, and he still has that much further to go. And if there is a new power introduced, how are we going to justify it by downplaying Kaido that much? You know what I mean? Big Mom you can downplay a lot because she's not technically in the right state of mind, so you can say she just lost it over time. She was a lot more stronger when she was younger because she had a bit more character to her. She was in more control because in her prime years she had people to rein her in a lot more, so she had a lot more control of her own personality. I don't know. But it's just weird. I don't know how to play it. Garp looks like an absolute beast in this chapter. Now, he could come and not be as strong, but that is an incredible attack. Alright? So what is that going to do for the rest of for power scale anyway? I don't know where to put them now, because I'd still consider them top, they should probably be in the top 10 now, right? Garp at least. Garp and Rayleigh should at least be in the top 10. Garp, Sengoku, and Rayleigh. Now, they should probably be in the same spot because they're all older. So now you're kind of looking at it okay, who has the stronger will? And my entire thing was Garp would have gotten weaker since Marineford because, well, of Ace dying, maybe it weakened his will. But we see here that that is definitely not the case because his will to protect Kobe is so strong and kind of replaced that, right? So I'm really intrigued in the upcoming arcs to see where all the powers lay and where Luffy plays into all this. You know what I mean? We need to see him fight one of these top tiers to see where he stands and thus where Kaido would have stood before he gets an X power up to fight Emu or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I'm really intrigued for this. But it also makes me, the more we go into the story, the more I think Blackbeard is top 1. I've been saying Blackbeard will get a power up to be top 1. Like, he's not top 1 right now. In fact, I think I put him in top 8 or top 10, right? But I think now Blackbeard's a lot better than we give him credit for. Because if Garp and Shanks are on that level, and Shanks still views him as a threat to that degree, I still think he's strong. He might still fall out of the top 5. I still think Shanks is currently top 1, and Blackbeard will eventually be top 1 for a while. But I think it's a lot closer now than I originally anticipated. He might even be top 5. He could. I don't know. See, I don't know why, but the idea of putting Blackbeard as stronger than Kaido just does not sit right with me. Because he's a conniving guy, so he wouldn't have fought him straight on, right? So I don't know where to put Blackbeard, but he's fighting these characters that put up great fights against them really nicely. And he's obviously going to have to fight Garp, or Alkiji's going to have to fight Garp. Something's going to have to happen here. But moving on from that and talking about Alkiji talks about sword in this chapter. Now, obviously, Kobe does bring it up and Alkiji explains it. But here's why I think that's really strange. Because I think it's really bad for Alkiji to talk about what sword is, because I think Teach is very smart. The second he does something abnormal, Teach is going to be like, oh, you're part of that sword thing, aren't you? He's going to cop it immediately. Like, if Alkiji's fighting Garp and he doesn't want to kill Garp and he does something abnormal to stop Garp from dying, gets in Teach's way, we know 100% Teach is going to figure out that Alkiji's part of sword. He should not have brought that up. And the thing is, I'm actually thinking he might not be, because if he was part of sword, I guarantee he would have told Kobe not to talk about sword for that very reason, which is why I'm very confused. That's the one action in this chapter I think Kobe fumbles. I know what he was trying to convey, but I don't think he needed to, because even Blackbeard says, well, you're the hero, so they're going to come anyway, right? But I do think that brings up a really nice point of view. One of the things I loved about this chapter was that Kobe is he's like, oh, people are coming from me. And he's like, oh no, don't get too highly of yourself. When did you start thinking of yourself so highly, right? And I love that, he's humble. He's getting a bit of an ego, but he's still humble. And I love that about Kobe. Kobe is, the little bits we get to see about Kobe is great. And that's what Oda's really skilled at, making you care for a character with little screen time. That's why Kobe is great. And I can't wait to see more of him. This final saga is going to pop off. I can't wait. But you know what I'm really excited for, though? What they're going to do with Law now. Because that fascinates me. Because if Law's part of Sword, Kobe's probably going to try and break him out because he's around where Moria is. And Kobe said he was going to break out Moria. So that's definitely going to happen. You know what I mean? And I think now that we know Blackbeard is on the island, he's definitely fighting Garp, because he's technically the guy responsible for kidnapping Ace and bringing him to the Marines, and Garp's going to want to make that right. You know what I mean? Obviously, he's going to save Kobe first, but I do think he might fight Garp for a bit. And I'm excited to see where this stands, because it's going to show us where Garp is against Shanks. If Garp is top 10 or if he's still in top 12, because I'm pretty sure I put him top 15 in my top 30. So to me, right, whatever Garp does is what the top 30 does, what the top 15 characters can do. So, but now I'm kind of thinking top 10, because he's definitely stronger than Law. I think that shows it, because Law couldn't do an attack like that. I don't think. So I think I put Law 12th. So Garp is definitely at least top 12 now. I'd assume. I'm excited to see where this goes. It also, to me, is a feat for Sengoku, because Sengoku and Shiki fought. Also, real quick, can we just say this? If we see these feats by Garp, right? think of how busted Shiki must be. He fought Garp and Sengoku, who were probably stronger then. Like, oh my god, Shiki is a monster. If he ever shows back up in the story as part of Cross Guild or part of Blackbeard's crew or anything, he is going to wreck house. And these are the characters I want to see again. I want to see Shiki. I want to see Uta. You know, I want to see these characters. I want to see a reference to Zephyr. You know, like, you're gonna make these really cool movie canon characters and not do anything about them. Like, Uta should have some reference at least in the story. I know we had the flashback. I know we had like the little flash when Shanks stopped Green Bull and Uta's silhouette was there. But come on, like, she was the impetus for Luffy's dream. And you don't hear about that in the manga at all. You don't have reference to her at all. I think if you're going to make her canon like that, do something with her, lads. Come on. You know, I don't know. I know she's supposed to be dead, but I still feels a bit off. You know what I mean? Are we going to go to Elgia? Or are we going to have a different plot line from the manga? I'm also a bit worried. I will say I've been rereading Whole Cake, and with all the stuff with Shanks playing off here, I'm kind of thinking we might not get to Elbath. Now, they've been talking about going to Elbath in Egghead, and I really hope so. You know me, I've been praying for a long, long time to go to Egghead. But I'm just getting worried it's not happening. I really am. Every chapter makes me scared because Egghead's going to be so big. Think about it. We're having a fight with Blackbeard and Garp right now, with some actually really cool Marines, I have to say. We've got Golem or something, Prince Golem, which is, I liked his kind of hippie 90s design, hippie 90s rapper design, like a Fresh Prince sort of deal, right? And it doesn't look like Fresh Prince. I mean his clothing, where he's wearing the cap like that, and the Doflamingo coat sort of deal. And I like that. But my favorite of the Marines shown was Hibari, I think her name is, because she was using a sniper. And I don't know, it was just like, that's some Riza Hawkeye vibes. And I'm hoping she's a badass sniper lady. Because I like Ben Beckman for the same reason, even though it's not really he doesn't really use a sniper, but he feels like a sniper to me, you know what I mean? And that just makes it really cool. I don't like Yasop. I know he's technically a sniper, but he's just a dickhead. I don't like Yasop at all. He's just an arsehole. I don't know how they're gonna make me like him though, because Oda's definitely gonna try, and I want to see how that goes. But I'm happy to see the Marines getting named characters that will do something in the story and actually have fights, because we need to see the Marines do something. The Pirates have been such a big focus in post time skip. The Marines have done nothing. That's what I was talking about previously with Smoker. He just doesn't do anything anymore. And it's sad because he was like the Marine that was improving along Luffy. Now Kobe has improved a major amount, but he's not alongside Luffy. They're on different journeys, whereas Smoker was going after Luffy for a long part of the pre-time skip, right? So that was a big thing. I don't know. As you can tell, this chapter has been absolutely insane, and there's a lot to be said about it. Obviously, the Kaido Big Mom stuff is still on my mind constantly, but I do think that having the Great War start in two different places, having it start in Egghead, but having it might continue in like Full of Lead Island. In fact, the Marines invading Egghead might actually interrupt the Full of Lead Island stuff, and the Full of Lead Island stuff might be put on hold. Like Blackbeard will be like, well, I got something more important to do, right? And he goes and tries to get Vegapunk, because we know he has some of his scientists on the way. But if he hears the Marines are on their way, he's gonna be like, nah, I need to get this. And even if Van Augur, there we go, Van Augur. If Van Augur can teleport and he can teleport other people, it could be a thing where, let's say he finds something important, and let's say Garp is winning, right? Because we all assume Garp is going to lose this fight, but let's say Garp is beating Blackbeard, right? He's actually winning the fight, and Aokiji, I don't know what Aokiji's doing, but you could say Aokiji saves him, and that's how he stops Garp from dying, by just freezing him over. But what I think might happen is, right, Garp is beaten down on Blackbeard. He's like, you killed my son, right? Or you killed my grandson. He's beating down him, Galaxy Fist, all that type of jazz, right? And then what we see is Luffy has found something on Egghead, and he thinks Blackbeard needs to see this. He teleports to Blackbeard and teleports him and Luffy, or not Luffy, and Van Augur back to Egghead. And I think that's how Blackbeard's going to show up there. Dragon might be there. I think Dragon's going to come to Egghead. I don't think he's going to Full of Lead. I do think, though, Katakuri might show up at Full of Lead, which might have some interesting implications because Moria, Law, and Pudding are probably going to be in the same area. So those two character things are going to combine together. And we know how Katakuri feels about his family. So he's obviously going to go after Pudding. But then I also thought maybe Blackbeard would be showing up at Egghead because it would be able to conclude Sanji's little romance story with Puddin by him actually attacking Blackbeard to try and free her. So I don't know what's going on and how that's going to play out, but I'm really interested to see if Katakuri shows up. Because I don't think anyone else will. And obviously, Big Mom, I don't know if she's dead. I feel like it might make more sense if she took Kaido's life force and is back on the scene. Her showing up at Elbaf would make sense, but also be cool if she shows up at Egghead. Because this is all chaos, right? To me, this war is going to turn into chaos. So I'm excited to see where it goes and how the Straw Hats are going to get away from this. But you see, in a way, this all makes sense, right? They're building up a next level of power, right? Shanks and Garp and possibly Blackbeard. To have that next level of power be shown and to show that maybe the Straw Hats aren't ready for that. Because even if Luffy and Zoro and Sanji are on that level already, if the rest of the crew are not there yet, they're going to need to ditch it because Luffy's not going to be able to take on multiple Kaido level opponents at once. If Akainu shows up, if like all this sort of stuff happens, if Akainu shows up, if Kizaru shows up, if Jay Garcia is on the same level as Kizaru, Luffy's not going to be able to handle this amount of people in one go in a fight. Do you know what I mean? If the rest of his crew is not on par with the current scaling, even if he is, and if he's not, then this is going to show what the new ceiling is for One Piece for the final saga, which I think will be incredibly enjoyable to watch. But this is how they're going to escape to Elbaf, and then all this stuff is going on. This war, and then I don't think they'll return to Egghead until after they find the One Piece. I think the war is going to continue in the background, like we've been seeing with like the cutting away of mid chapters. And then they're going to do all the One Piece stuff, and he's going to achieve his dream, and they're going to come back to the war as King of the Pirates. Now, there's obviously going to be some conflict in between. In fact, Blackbeard might do the same thing, and that's what's going to make his big shock reveal, because he was kind of off to the side focusing on other stuff, and Blackbeard might actually come back as King of the Pirates, and Luffy has to take it back during the final war, but I don't think he's going to head back to Egghead until we've technically found the One Piece. You know what I mean? I feel like Elbaf will be an island, then they might get a lodestar, and then they'll go find the One Piece, and then the final war, and then Luffy will come into the final war. Because we had 10 chapters without Luffy in the final war in Marineford. So that's probably going to happen again, but on a larger scale, and then he's going to show up halfway through, and then it's going to shift focus again to more of a Straw Hat focus, right? So I'm excited to see where this goes, what they do with it. It's really enticing, and Wano's been really good. Wano and Egghead have been really good arcs. Wano feels that it'll blow it. In fact, I wanted to since I'm just sitting here nitpicking a little bit about certain things, Zoro's arc in Wano makes no sense. I was looking at this recently, while I was rewatching Whole Cake. Whole Cake focuses on a limited number of Straw Hats that get really good moments and get really good character moments for them. Brook gets fantastic character moments because you can't really give him development because he's 90 years old. Most of his development has already happened. So he just shows why he's a cool dude, right? He has really cool moments against Big Mom and just in general with the crew. Sanji obviously has his big character arc, which is continued on in Wano beautifully, might I add, when you watch it in completion. Jinbei has his thing going on, which is also fantastic. I love what they were doing with Jinbei, and they didn't really continue it at Wano, but that was fine because Jinbei had his big moment in Whole Cake. They were building up to that with Big Mom, but In Wano, I thought, okay, they're gonna focus on Zoro a bit more in the Straw Hats. We didn't see like Usopp and Nami, and oh yeah, okay, Nami had her moment with ulti, but it wasn't that great. It was grand, but they built up Zoro for Act 2, and initially I was like, that's fine. They didn't pay it off. They're building it up for later on. But you gotta understand, after rewatching Whole Cake, Oda did not need to focus on any of this stuff. Like any of the stuff he need. Like he had a lot of build up in Whole Cake. You could have made it so Zoro had a bit more focus. He didn't have to focus at all on the characters from Whole Cake that much. Obviously, Sanji made sense because he's number 3 in the cast, right? So he kind of has to be. But Nami, for one, she had a lot more character in Whole Cake. Her entire thing could have been sidetracked a little bit. We didn't need that as much. We could have had more focus on Zoro, because if you're gonna build him up and then have that happen, I just think that's a waste of time. You know what I mean? I don't know. He's obviously gonna pay it off, but like the more I watch Whole Cake, the more annoyed I get about what the small things in Wano. I don't know how to feel about it. And Egghead's just been really great, and I'm excited to see where that goes, but I'm hoping they don't make the same mistake with the Straw Hats, you know what I mean? And I'm sure he'll learn from that and he'll improve, and I'm excited to see where that goes. But I just don't know, to be honest. I really don't. I don't know how I feel, and how it's like a shadow, in the back of everything that's going on that I'm really excited about, because I keep thinking, this doesn't mesh with Wano. This makes Wano make less sense. Like, what's going on? Do you know what I mean? Even though this is just setup, but I'm really loving Egghead, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Unfortunately, though, we have a break next week, which is a big bummer. I would have liked to have another chapter to talk about, but what can you do? These things happen, right?